All right, let's see. Because I do this so infrequently, it does look like it is live on Twitch. And it does look like we are live on YouTube. So, we have what one might say liftoff. Oh, Stream Elements is on Twitch, so that's fun. I need to real quick post to Discord. Because it posted early. It does it on its own. I don't have a ton of control over that. Everything looks fine. So, let's just get right into it. That was my phone. The objective today, because this is a stream and not a video, I am going to automate Siltforge is the plan. Or parts of Siltforge. Because I know there are plenty of people who do not quite know what is going on with automation. That would be the word. And I have some credentials in that I did part of a computer science degree. So, I'm going to use that expertise, and I am going to do some stuff about automation. Now, I am going to have an actual guide or a series of guides, as I've said, on Discord when this comes out. There will be probably 2, maybe 3 videos, depending on how I plan to, or depending on how it goes and how I split it up. But we, oh, this now has a recipe because it has fireworks. Yeah, so there will be a guide coming out once the 1.0 update actually releases, but until then, this will have to do. I am going to start. This is going to be a bit. Hello, Runix. How are you doing? I think you're the first person here. I am going to just start. What am I going to say? I'm going to kind of. I've lost my train of thought. I'm going to kind of try to go part by part and, in a way, explain bit by bit. But, I mean, I'm not going to explain everything about the mechanic because I'm doing that in the video. Oh, you have a twisted ankle, Runix. I'm sorry to hear that. And don't feel bad about lurking. I mean, it's always good by me. I love that people are willing to come and sit here and even lurk while I play this game. So, first and easiest thing I think to do to explain how this works is going to be just with a, well, I could do a lever, but that's too simple. I'm going to do the depth sensor. We are learning about the automation features. There's a lot in this, especially if tonight I can get to like memory and stuff. I legitimately think that we will see someone put Doom in Timberborn if there is a possibility of the game not crashing, somebody will figure out how to do that. It is a drought, which is fine because I'm not really that worried about it. So my first thing I'm going to do, I know in the video I said that this doesn't really flood, and it doesn't. But I think with automation, I can make it even better by replacing these dams, particularly because we don't walk over them at all. So I'm going to get rid of those and replace them with floodgates, which I've not unlocked the one high floodgate. So that's fun. And then we are going to do automation with the depth sensor right here. Since this is where the flood starts from. I mean, I could put it up there technically. But this is where the flood starts from. We will let them build all of that. And there we go. The depth sensor works basically just like the old sluice did with... You set a maximum height here. Well, right now it's maximum. There's 6 options. But you set a height here, and then since I have it as greater than, if the height of the water ends up greater than whatever I set as the threshold here, this depth sensor will turn on. If it is below that, the depth sensor will turn off. Which in and of itself is not that big of a... or not that good of a use, but if we come over here to these dams or floodgates, I can automate these. And I like to click on it. We can also select it by name. But right now there's only the one, so just clicking like that. Of course, this has now given it settings that I maybe did not want. So, floodgates, they have a setting when this sensor is off and a setting when this sensor is on. I did pause it because the way it is currently set, when it is on, it goes to 1 meter high, which means that anytime this detects that the depth is over that 0.7, this is going to go to 1 meter, which I want it to be the opposite. I want it to be 0 when this detects that the upstream height or depth is more than that 0.7, because then this will open all the way up and it will let the water rush out. And I messed it up a little bit because I didn't do that immediately, or I didn't pause it immediately. And then once this falls back below that 0.7, this will turn off and these floodgates will move back up to that 0.65. So essentially, these floodgates are only open if this is flooding, is what we have done there. Now, that's obviously going to be a very simple mechanism, and you should see 0.7 might be too high, but it might be just right. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, but it looks like 0.7 with the flow here is going to get it right up to that edge before the flow is enough to bring it out of our flooding area down here. That would be the word. Okay. So, that's the simple thing. I will say the one thing that I have noticed in my testing over the past 2 days, rename the sensors. Because when we get to the point where we have 12, 15, a bunch of these sensors all around the place, it becomes impossible to tell what sensor is going to be what. So I'm just going to name this sensor. Now again, I have part of a computer science degree, so I tend to like to do these as if they are part of that. So if upstream greater than 0.7. And then if we were to be selecting something here, we would see if upstream greater than greater than 0.7. So if we needed to reuse that for anything, it would be very easy to what am I trying to say? It would be very easy to tell what it's doing and not just have depth sensor 1 through 13. Triwolf says that they need a refresher on logic gates. I will get to that probably right about now, actually. Because that's sensors. Every single one of these basically works in the same way. They're all measuring different things. Like the chronometer does time. I'll go over that in the video that is coming out next week. I go over every single one. It takes a ton of time, but they're all pretty self-explanatory based off of the name. Like population counter does population, housing, a workforce, and will also be the second thing that we do, because this will allow us a good opportunity to see how AND gates work. So I'm going to put down 2 of these. The important thing with that is that every sensor can only do one thing at a time. So if I want to compare 2 population statistics, I will need 2 sensors. And then I'm also going to unlock and place down the relay, because this is going to be what we use to make our AND gate. Or it might be an OR gate. Let's see. And we can just start putting the things, the stuff we're going to... What am I trying to say? We're going to be able to just start adding the conditions while these are sitting here before they are built. So what I essentially want to do is make it so that these will stop. All of these will pause if there is no housing and there are no jobs. No, I want it to be an OR gate, not an AND gate, now that I think about it. So for that, for relays, we have not AND, OR, XOR, or pass-through. I don't remember. Pass-through is just on if on, so I don't know why you would use that. But I'm sure that there is something with like transistors and ways computers work where people would use that. Not would just flip whatever we have it set to. So if we... Let me just start with this. We need free beds. If free beds is equal to 0, this will turn on. So I actually want it to be... I want it to be on when free beds are... When there are free beds. So I want it to be if free beds is greater than 0, which will mean on. Then this is on. And I will put that as the name. If and free beds greater than 0. So to refresh not gate, not just switches it. This is currently on, other than the fact that we don't have metal parts, do we? Okay, that's one thing I forgot. Metal parts, new thing, takes scrap metal, turns it into metal. I mean, that's... Hey, I need power. What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm friggin' out. And then I will need metal parts or scrap metal and logs. So scrap metal bring, logs bring. And then we will get metal parts out. So we will do metal parts leave. Where the heck are metal parts? Up here? Up here. Okay. So then metal parts are leaving. These are connected. We don't have the supply. That's another one that we're going to deal with automation. So they are going to build those and then get these housing sensors, I assume. Free beds. Won't work because this is currently not built, and so it's not detecting anything. But our not gate. Free beds, as we can see, would be on if it was built. There it goes. Free beds is on, so not gate turns it off. In general, this one is not super useful, I have noticed, because what am I trying to say? It's not super useful because there are so many options here that most of the time a not gate would be better served by doing one of these other options. Not every time. There's some things like, where are my sensors? If you have a weather station and you want the game to detect if you have a weather station, you want the game to detect if the current weather is a bad tide or a drought. So anything that is not temperate weather, it is easier to detect whether, well, not easier, but the quick way to do that is have it detect whether it is temperate weather and then flip that with a not gate. And pretty self-explanatory. This is just and for if both 1 and 2, or A and B as this says, if both A and B are on, then an AND gate will be on. So there we go. Both these are on, so the AND gate is on. Or is if either or both are on. So greater population less than 0 turns that off, but this gate, this sensor is still on, so the relay will be on. Or will work if both are on. XOR does not, or XOR, or exclusive OR is, I think, the actual term for it. Exclusive OR will only turn on if one or the other sensor is on, but not both. So if both of these sensors are on, then the XOR sensor is off for the relay. For this, we want and I will turn this. The other thing we wanted was vacancies. If vacancies is less than, no, greater than 0. It's less than or equal to 0. Yes, if vacancy is less than or equal to 0, then this turns on. That would mean that if, no, we want it to turn off if there is 0. So it's just if vacancy is less than 0. Or do I do unemployed beavers? Maybe I do unemployed beavers. If because that's an easier number to visualize. If unemployed beavers is greater than 0. But that, actually, now that I say it, would be 2. That would mean that if, like right now, we have any unemployed beavers, they won't. There'd never be a situation where we have a surplus of beavers. So I actually want to make this maybe not 8. 8 is too much. Let's just go with 5. So if unemployed beavers hits 5, which would allow us to basically do anything without looking or paying attention to how many beavers we have, then that turns off. I think that's correct. Runics, I don't know how long ago you said this, but you said, is there a new metal? So there's a new... It's kind of the way folktales have paper. Iron Teeth now have metal parts. It's basically a new metal because you take scrap and not metal blocks and logs. And you make metal parts. I don't remember what they're used for other than these automation stuff. Maybe... So some of the bot-related things use metal parts. And then I'm not entirely sure what else. Explosives factories use metal parts. I wonder what... And we'll find that out together soon. Well, not soon. Probably in April, when I do the Iron Teeth Beginner Survival Guide. We'll find out exactly what the deal with that is going to be, because I honestly don't know. Just exactly how necessary those are. It seems like a lot of things still take metal. But something, the exercise plaza takes metal parts. So it fits in a weird spot. It does fit almost as if it is, you'll need both at the same time. But I need to do this, which is finish my relay explanation. So this is if unemployed greater than 5. And then I haven't found a good way. I mean, I could do both of these on the relay. But I think this is probably the best way to do that. I said empty and free. It's fine. So then with this, I want to take basically all of these advanced breeding pods and connect them up to the relay. And the way that this works, I should explain. When we automate something like a breeding pod to a relay... Hey, this is not right. Wait, is it? No. We have 1 unemployed. Oh, it's greater than 5. So it is supposed to be that. Less than, or I guess it's fine if it's equal to 5. I need to change this. Less than or equal to 5. Okay. Runex. I see the population count great for making huge housing complex, but not fill them with idle beavers. That is... Yeah, I think that this, especially free beds, the other thing you could do, and not so much with Iron Teeth, but with Folktales, I was thinking about this. You could have it so that free beds is like the, well, you'd want it the opposite way. Well, or just a higher number. Basically, you could set it up so that as the game ticks on, it's pausing, since houses are able to be paused and automated. And you don't want folktales breeding all at once, because then you can get like a death wave. You could make it so that using something similar to this with free beds greater than a number, that as those beds are filled, it opens up more housing. Now, I'm not entirely sure the best way to do that, but it's definitely something you could do. And I will end up doing it at some point if I play Folktales soon. But when automating things, when automating something that's paused like this in particular, automation works with you. You press automate and you connect it to any sort of sensor or relay. And I'm just doing the clicking again. And then this thing that I've connected will be active if the relay is on, and it will be paused if the relay is off. That's pretty important when you are setting things up, because, you know, if I made this Zor, then that turns off. So we want it to be and then I'm just going to connect everything up here. This may not be my smartest move, if I'm being honest. I might want to leave one or two of these unconnect. No, I don't. I want it to be automated. I want the automation. So I'm going to do every single one. And then this tripped me up when I first started doing this. If you take something that is already paused manually and try to connect it up, it won't unpause it. It only unpauses it when the building is normally unpaused. So I have to turn it on and then that will work. That is something that I always forget, Triwolf. I can also use V to copy and paste the setting. So that copy and pasted the setting for the automation there. So much quicker if I was smart enough to remember to do it. You can also, though it is less useful, do that with these. Like I could copy the settings onto here. That would be mostly useful if I decided that there was something where if unemployed was less than 5, I wanted to use that, and then I could just manipulate that, and I could copy it that way. But I don't want to do that, so that's just a hypothetical. One other one that that is super easy to do, and with these number crunchers over here, I can do science. I can do if it is greater than 0. No, if it is less than 0 would be easier for what I'm trying to demonstrate. And probably, honestly, less than 5,000. There's nothing else. I mean, because everything we have unlocked, that's a huge one. I think. What's 500? Yeah, a couple thousand. Yeah, 5,000 is probably just about right. So this turns off if science. No, it actually turns off if science is greater than 5,000. So if science is less than 5,000 is what I will put it as. Science is less than 5,000. If science is less than 5,000, that turns on. I can then connect up there. And so these will both turn off if I have a bunch of extra science. Hey, look, Sinzel was born. What a funny name for it to pick out while I was looking. So these will just not run if we don't, or if we have a ton of science. Which will mean that we are saving on all of the power when we clearly don't need it because we don't have that many things to unlock and we don't yet have bots. And actually, we're in the middle of a drought. So that's extra. Ooh, nah, I don't really. I think with the way we have it currently, that's all we need. But we could also, and I will probably do this in the future, do some sort of AND gate here and make it so that if we are in the middle of a drought, these also turn off. But that would really only be if I was planning to have this be higher than 5,000, for example, unlocking the Earth Repopulator. Right now with such low, what are they called? Science thresholds there. I don't think it's necessary. Let's see, what else is there to do? Quell Coder says don't go less than 0, do less or equal to. For, I don't think anything is less than 0. Or were you talking about the science thing? Building unstaffed. I don't know why a building is unstaffed. But that also reminds me of another one I wanted to do. I'm going to put this up here. Now, this is just my own personal preference, but I like to put my sensors near the thing I am going to be using them for. That's not really required, but I think it helps me figure out what I am doing. So I do it. I realized I never made a metal parts big storage. So I'm going to do that there. Then this I'm going to have be unhealthy workers. So I want this to be if unhealthy workers is greater than... No. Is less than or equal to 10. So this will turn off if there are 11 unhealthy workers. And then I'm going to connect up the efficient mine. Except this only has 5 workers. So greater than or equal to 5. Less than or equal to 5. There we go. So that'll be on if we have fewer than 5 unhealthy workers. It will automatically turn off if we have 6 unhealthy workers. That unhealthy workers, I found out, does include contaminated beavers. But honestly, if we've got more than 5, we should be turning this off. We should be turning this off anyway. There is another thing we can do, though, with population control. This one is just the best for easy things. Contaminated total greater than 0. So it'll currently be off. And that will turn the decontamination pods on. Because we don't need them to be running. Otherwise, they just use up power. So we will turn those off if there are contaminated beavers at all. No, we'll turn them off if there are not contaminated beavers at all. because then again we don't have them pulling power. Okay. Other things. This is just apparently going to be where my mind goes for the most part, is turning off things when we don't need them. We have the chronometer here. Now I could put this in a better spot, obviously. I could put this in a spot where it looks like a clock, but I'm going to put it here. This one I'm going to have be non-working hours, and then I am going to use that to turn off all of the things that use power during the day when my beavers should not be at them. Especially since we have now made it so that we will not have any extra beavers doing any sort of leisure activities. And I could go the other way too. I could do, and I'm not going to because I'm going to want other settings for these, but I could just make it so that these all turn off when the workday is over, but also I believe they don't, maybe they do pull power. I think they don't pull power when no one's, oh geez, now I gotta check. They don't pull power when nobody is working in them. So that's not really that necessary. These do, though. If these are just on, they will pull power. Yeah, see, it automatically jumps there. So turning these off during the workday is useful in that regard. We could do that with something like a campfire. That's not necessary. Oh, no, actually we can't. Campfires can't be paused. We could do that with something like a Oh, geez. I thought these could be paused. Maybe not. Okay. I could also do something silly, like have all the houses pause during the day and then unpause once the day is over. I wonder what that would do. Would that reshuffle all my beavers? It would make all the beavers homeless momentarily, which wouldn't work for what we have going over here. But I wonder logistically how that would work. Whether that would... Doesn't matter. I'll test it later. Let's see, what else can we automate? Detailers. We could turn detailers off. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah. I could connect. Oh, I need to name the chronometer too. If non-working hours. But yes, I could turn off the detailers during non-working hours. They're not pulling power, which I guess is your point, because I couldn't think of something earlier. They're not pulling power, so I don't think it's particularly necessary. I could do with detailers. I could turn them off if we don't have extract. But it seems like we're storing plenty. So next. Oh, I was playing around with earlier yeah, I think it would prevent them from being filled. I think you're right, because they're paused. Because, yeah, they move logs out of steam engines when they're paused. So I think you're right, that would... Well, oh, but haulers would be not working. So yeah, that might not be the smartest move, but it would work. Like, it would function. Anyway, yes, I wanted to, beyond just automating little things because I'm neurotic. Yes, engines are a target for automation. So I was thinking about this. The engine should be on when there is not enough power. But I don't think I want it to just... I need it connected to either a timer or memory. Here, I'll show what's going on in my brain. So we'll build a timer. Surplus is less than or equal to 0. This will turn on, so that will mean that if this number, the amount of demand we have over power supply, is negative, then these will turn on. Let me see if I can showcase part of the issue with that specific one. Runix asked, could an engine be connected to a weather meter to turn on during droughts? That we definitely could do, and I will end up throwing... Well, I guess I wouldn't need to throw it in here. But yes, I could... With a weather station. I could just make this... drought, because I don't need it as much with a bad tide, so that these will only turn on during droughts. And I'll just... if drought. So this one will be automatically off unless it is a drought, in which case it will pop on. Now, let me see. I don't have an easy way to... Oh, I do have an easy way to knock myself out of power. That is such an odd thing. So, this is the problem with just going based off of power supply, is that the engines will kick on, and then they will see that the surplus is fulfilled by themselves, and they will turn back off. Which is so funny. It's just so funny to me that that's... Because that is how it should be working, I guess, but it just the very... This is only testing if power is negative, and then it is, so these turn on. But then that makes it not negative anymore, so they turn back off. It's just so funny to me. The way we could solve that, though, there's two ways, I guess. The easy way is to put down a timer. So for this, I can just connect it up to our if power is negative, and then I could make this... oh, actually, I don't want it to delay by anything. I want it to stay on for, let's say, 5 hours. And then I want to connect these up to timer 1. So this is the simplest way, but it does still have the same issue, essentially, in that it will turn itself off once this hits the end of the 5 hours, but it just doesn't do that thing where it's flipping on and off the same way. Although, actually, I wonder if... One tick is probably fine. I wonder if there is a good way to do that where it could be 8 hours, I guess, because it would likely kick on at the beginning of the day, go 2 times, and then turn off for the rest time. That would be my thought for, I guess, 7 hours. Well, no, 7 hours would overrun most likely, because you'd be ticking off twice and ticking on twice, then going about there. 5 hours honestly might be a good, or 4. And I've reset it by doing that. So, yes, Chris, that is going to be the better solution that I implement in just a second. I'm just really trying to show the timer right now. And we're still at a... Okay, so that's... Yeah. And then that'll just tick down, and then it'll do that oscillating thing a bit again. But it'll just do it the once. Or it won't, because now it's nighttime. It'll just oscillate down the once and then kick itself back on. I don't know. I assume... Oh, actually, memory looks like it is cheaper than timers. I was going to say, I assume timers are cheaper than memory, but it looks like it's not. So the easier way, not easier, the better way, in my opinion, is probably to use memory. Hi, Dabbler. Yes, there are logic functions. So up here we have an AND gate, which is making it so that if there are free beds available and there are less than 5 unemployed beavers, they will activate the breeding pods, but otherwise they won't. So there are full logic gates in Timberborn now. So you can make things especially complicated if you feel like it. So memory, it's got a bunch of different things that I honestly don't... I have not found myself using compared to set reset, and maybe toggle. But I like set reset better. That's just a me thing, though. So with set reset, what we could do, have them build another sensor. We know that each steam engine has a consistent power supply of 400. So with 3 steam engines going, we are never going to have more than 1,200 extra horsepower. So what we will do is we will set the surplus to 1,200 on this one. So this flips on if power is in the negative. This... Oh, I actually want this to be greater than 1,200. This flips on if power greater than 1,200. I don't know why if is capitalized there. Then with our memory, which we have on as set reset, A will turn on based off of memory 1. So that will mean that if memory 1 turns on, no, what am I saying? It'll turn on based off of this power meter. That means memory 1 will be in an on state if this power meter turns on at all. The way I have it currently, I think it'll just be... Yes. The way I have it currently, if power is negative at all, this will be on forever. So that is probably not what we want. We want to add this reset, which will, if memory 1 has been on, will turn back off once the reset turns on. So we will make the reset if power is greater than 1,200. And I keep saying power. I need to make it power surplus on this one. If power surplus is greater than 1,200, and I'm just going to fix a little mistake there. So as we can see, power surplus is greater than 1,200, so this turns off. I need to connect these up to here now. And I will pause even more of these. That one needs supplies. And these will turn on because our surplus is so low. And then they're not getting watered to these very quickly. Since our surplus is still below that 1,200, these stay off. And then if I turn my wheels back on, they turn off. It is kind of annoying that the haulers will then take everything out of them. I really wish that wasn't the case for these buildings being paused by the automated stuff. But this automation stuff is already by and large better than anything I thought we would ever get in Timberborn, so I'll live. Dabbler said, fantastic, thank you for the logic information. Have you had time to check if there is the ability to move population from district to district? There would be. I don't actually have districts in this colony, but you can automate... Oh no, that's automating the... I think there is. Hold on. I'm like 99% sure that there is a way to do that. It's probably with a district crossing. Which I've not unlocked, so let's pull that up and just slap it down. No, that's just going to be... Hmm. I don't know. And now I'm kind of tempted to pull up. Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I will check that. I may check that at the end of the stream. Yeah, it is definitely... I mean, you could still do it with the district menu, but I'm... Because you can automatically move based off population on the district menu. But you can't move based off of condition, which I think is the question. Because, like, if we had... Let's say this was a separate district that was only about getting dirt. And we migrated beavers over to the dirt district only if we have a need for dirt. Or it very well may be a real civil engineer question of if beaver contaminated, I move them to the exile district. But I would think that you could, but then I don't... It doesn't seem like there is a way to do that. So I don't know. Actually, that reminded me talking about the dirt thing. This is another one that just sits here and eats up power. Happy Funland Protocol. Yeah. With that, too, you can... what is it? The indicator, I believe. I believe it is indicators, which are one of the new... They're not really logic blocks. They're an effect block, I guess. You can show warning and add journal entry to something. So I will just hook that up here, and I will show what I mean by that. So the indicator is set to go off based off of this memory 1. And memory 1 is not named here, so this is going to be a bit weird. But if we just knock this out, we get indicator 1 and indicator 1 up here. So we could legitimately name this Happy Funland Protocol. And I've just got to get that thing to flip again. Hold on. And then we get a warning, and we get a warning here. You can do so many silly things with automation. I just love this. When I do the second Iron Teeth series, the second Beginner's Guide series, I'm going to go so insane doing this every single moment of my life. Over here, though, we have our dirt excavator. It has a high power input and takes up 4 jobs. We don't need that. We do not need that to be running when there are a bunch of... What am I trying to say? A bunch of dirt that's already put up. Yeah, so that's taking up 200 horsepower and not doing anything. So I'm going to put down a resource counter. Also, the resource counter, population counter, and I think it's just those two, require a path connection. Because they... Well, not that one. But the resource counter has a... Or no. The population counter has a district and global mode. Doesn't matter if we have a single district like here, but... I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. The district is based off the district it is connected to. That's why that needs the path connection. This one doesn't have that. but it's still here anyway. So dirt. If dirt... Oh, but see here, I actually have another thing. The dirt situation and the unloading, paused building situation. We're always hoping to tackle by shifting populations around. Yes. Okay, cool. So yeah, I don't know for sure, but I hope so. This dirt issue where we have beavers working here and taking up power input when there's no reason to be because we're not using this dirt is another thing that I'm going to use memory for, and another thing I'm going to use that set reset for. I've grabbed a path and not the memory. Okay. So I'm going to build that here, and then I'm going to have a second resource counter that is still dirt. And I need them. They're building from inside there. So I'm going to take 2 resource counters here. The first one, quick aside, resource counters have both percent and quality. Percent obviously makes it more modular because you can go based off of the percent, and then if I add dirt excavators or industrial piles or whatever, that it'll grow with those being added. If I wanted, say, there to always be 100 dirt, I could also use quantity. I have not, again, limited testing. This has only been out 2 days. I've not really found a ton of use for quantity myself in actual gameplay, but it is an option. And actually, I just thought of the one that I could show. And I will in a second. But, excuse me. So, percent resource counter if the measurement is above, no, if it's equal to 100. So this only turns on the minute that it should be on, but it is not. I find equal to is so finicky. So we're going to do above or equal to. So that's on. And then this one I'm going to set to dirt being below 25%. So, again, very much need to name these. If dirt below 25%, and this is if dirt, it's really at 100, but it just doesn't like me using 100. Well, I guess I could try. No, it does not think that it's ever at 100%. So I guess 99% is better for that. And then this is going to be set reset. It's going to set when dirt hits 100%. It's going to reset when dirt is below 25%, which is essentially going to be a threshold counter for us. Then we are going to automate based off of that. And I have just realized that I can't automate based off of that. That is backwards. So I will actually do this the other way. I will make dirt at 25% or less than 25% and at 100% the reset. Because this needs to be on for the building to be unpaused. So the way I had it before, where if dirt at 100%, this turns on, would mean that the building is only turning on when dirt is at 100%, which is not what we wanted. And I could have easily just thrown a not gate there. I could have thrown down a relay and done, if not this one, but that would have been more resources. And again, the logic works if I make the logic work. And that's pretty much any sort of gate. And that kind of stuff. You don't need not gates, but also you don't need ors or gates. You could do everything with nots and ands. So this is going to be dirt threshold. So that'll just make it so that if the dirt, if the dirt falls below 25% stored, then this will turn on until we get back to 100. That saves us power, that saves us jobs. The other thing that I forgot to do earlier, or I said I could do earlier, what was I talking about? It was resources. I wanted to add a resource counter here. Although I'm actually going to add it. Now this is, again, just for my own... so where's a good place to put this? I want something that's going to detect wood. And I guess I really should just put it over here. I'm being a bit neurotic with this. Do I have... How many things do I have that aren't... So memory 1 is the only one that's unnamed, which is this. So this is going to be... I'm just going to call this engine controller. Because I'm never going to use this in a time where it's not for engines. So this, I'm going to make wood, which is called logs. This detects logs. If logs gets below a quantity of 200. I have that backwards. If logs is above 200, I want that on. And then even more logic added here. I'm going to put a relay down. I'm going to make this an AND gate. So this is going to be log counter and what was it? It was negative power. Log counter and negative. Ooh, I hit the limit for characters there. Log, counter, and negative power. And then I'm going to change this to this. So now the set reset. Oh. Probably would help if I gave this the right thing though, wouldn't it? Because I just named it, I didn't actually set it. So now the logic gate turns on if power is negative. And if we have, I forgot to name this one too. If logs greater than 200. So this one, I don't care about percent. Because really, it's not that important what the actual percentage is here. It just matters that... What is my power at? Oh, see, there we go. It flipped on. It just matters that I have that surplus of logs of 200. If I made that percentage and then I added 15 big log storages, it could be that that is only kicking on when, well, in this case, if we had 200 out of 1600 is like 1/8. So we add a bunch, we get that up to 5,000 and we need suddenly 600 or so logs. I don't need, or I don't want that. I want it specifically to be 200 logs, which I think is a generous surplus with the amount of log production that we have. So that would be an instance where I would use quantity and not percent. And it gives us a bit of a another condition to test for these engines. Since engines will use up logs, they will chew through log. Well, I guess they don't chew through logs quite quickly. They used to chew through a ton of logs, but now they chew through not as many logs. So if they were, and I could build a bunch more engines to chew through logs if I wanted to, but this essentially just makes it so that if there is that log, or if there is no log surplus, if I was doing a ton of stuff that required logs, then those engines wouldn't turn on. Yes, pod automation is working. Because we now have 6 unemployed beavers, which also is going to, I may need to adjust that now that I think about it, because well, I'm not going to. I think 5's still fine. If I start messing with more workplaces, I will have to adjust it, because we could end up in a situation where we just have a huge surplus of unemployed workers when their workplaces are what am I trying to say? Their workplaces are paused for other reasons, but we still need them around to fill those jobs. And actually, I will just, now that I say that, I'll make a point of putting that up to 9. So we still have 5 unemployed workers, and then also we have the 4 that are supposed to be in the dirt excavator. Runic said, read over the patch notes again because I noticed the log and badwater resources. Yeah, I was kind of surprised, since it seems like this is the end of what we're going to be getting. I would have guessed that they were going to add more uses for badwater. I thought and I talked about this ad nauseum. Also the mine, you're right. So I can bump that up to like 13. Well, the mine hasn't turned off so far. Let me keep it at 11. And that's just my gut. So yeah, I talked about this in one of the countdown to 1.0 episodes when I was recording it, and then I cut it out because I was like, this is just me rambling. But I really thought when they did this, when they put badwater up here, I was like, okay, that seems so weird. I bet that there is a badwater update coming where there's going to be a whole bunch more uses for badwater. And then there's just not. Which I guess is fine. Like, do we need to use badwater for a bunch of stuff? No. But now, logs are so important. And yet, the badwater counter is more prominently a focus. So I don't know. They don't seem intent on changing it, though, because people have been complaining about it for a while. It is cleaner, I guess, because you just now have logs with resources rather than logs being its own distinct thing. And there's the mod that changes it from... I don't remember who it was from. But there's a mod that lets you change all of the UI elements now. So it can be fixed, but... I have noticed that we now have an inputs and outputs read here. Which I don't know exactly what those... I don't know exactly what those numbers actually represent. Because you would think if we have an input of 78 scrap metal and an output of 354, that our scrap metal would be very quickly disappearing, but it's not. Huh. And also we have things like this where it says output of 59 coffee, but yet we don't have 59 coffee being lost. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. But it is certainly there. I do have one that I want to do. I paused the Earth Repopulator at the end of the inputs is consumers and outputs is producers. Oh, wait. So output is what's going... Coffee consumers beavers. So inputs is what takes that as an input. Output is what is being produced. That makes total sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense that they call them that to me, but it does make sense that the math would be working out then. So we're getting 200 logs from lumber mills while at the same time using 160 lumberjacks, using 166 logs in our buildings. That makes sense. I now understand where the math is going on that. I don't understand why they named it that way, but that's beside the point. Does it do that for everything? Interesting. But I guess most of these you're not storing in a building other than in the output. Oh, it's output because it's in a building's output. That makes sense. That does make sense. Thank you for explaining that to me, Chris. Oh boy, I'm not the smartest sometimes. Yes, so output is sitting in the output part of my district pumps. Input is sitting in the input part of a different building. Perfect. Got it now. Understand. I will forget that, but I've got it right now. Oh boy. Hey, another thing I could pause. It does kind of fill the role of the good stats mod. You're correct there, but I think the good statistics mod gives extra information that maybe isn't necessarily fulfilled by that. It might be going based off that same number for things like how many days it takes to run out of stuff. And also Good Statistics has that graph, which I really like because I like graphs. But yes, I think it does take some of the not necessarily necessity, but I think it gives some of the information that mod was required for to you for, I want to say for free, but that's not really the correct terminology there. Anyway, I paused this at the end of the last episode of Siltforge because I said that I didn't want my beavers to use up all the gear, treated planks, and metal blocks for the colony. Because they do that. They will just go and put everything in here. However, with automation, I think we can fix that. Well, not fix that. They still would. but I think we can prevent it from happening. My fear. I think if we get 3 resource counters, we go gears, treated planks, and metal blocks. Yes. We can actually, this would be a good idea for what to use inputs and outputs for. No, maybe not. I was about to do that and then I completely got sidetracked. You're right. The beavers aren't supposed to be here during the day. So I can hook these up to the same automator for my wind tunnels, because beavers largely are not in this area. And then we are saving on the power. So we're now during the day, and I am pretty sure we were nearing the supply number with our demand as of the last episode. But now during the day, with all this stuff paused and our number crunchers paused because we don't need the science, we are sitting well below half of our power supply. And we have the automatic engines kicking on. This is such a good update. Have I said that? Have I expressed how good I think this update is? Because I do. But we will move on to what I was doing over here. So we've got all of these. And I don't see, I want to use this number, input and output, but then I don't really know how to do it consistently. Yeah, that's another thing, Dabbler. I mean, we got chunks of it just throughout. That is just input output logic. I mean, this is 5 different terminals controlling 3 engines. So that's yeah. Over here, though, we need... I'm just going to put it at 25%. So if... No, I'm going to do... Well, metal blocks and gears, I'm going to do it 50%. Heck, I'm just going to do everything at 50%, honestly. Because I'm not smart. So we want these to be on only when we have above 50% of the total storage of those resources. Then we will need AND gates. I mean, I could do it with memory, but that would just be trying to show off at that point. Since all relays are technically bits and bytes in a computer, you could do it just with I think it's the flip-flop. I think it's flip-flops are how you could hard code an AND gate if you were an insane person. I am not that insane. So, also I need to, if gears greater than 50%, this will be if TP greater than 50%, just because I'm going to laugh about toilet paper. And this is if metal blocks greater than 50%. And then at this point, it doesn't really matter which order we do these in. Well, it does matter if I do that. Gears, treated planks, and then this one will just have this as one of the inputs and this as the other. So this is gears and treated planks greater than 50%. And then this one is gears, treated planks, and metal blocks greater than 50%. Okay. Then for this, we just connect that up there. Turn that on. And it will only be getting input if we have all of these on, or it should only be getting input in that case. And it has not turned off. Interesting. That did not work how I thought it was going to. I thought it would pause the building. So, luckily there is a way around this. I'm going to pause this again. There's a new structure block. It is the gate. We will get rid of this, and we will build a gate. And we will connect the gate up to this. And then this will look like some sort of amusement park attraction, but hey, if it works, it works. So they will come over here and build the gate. Yes, there is a gate option here now. So that's on. But the gate is closed. And we'll just make sure this does work the way I intend. So that needs to get to 50% metal blocks. Which I'm not storing a lot of, am I? Not storing a lot of... and there we go. Once it's over 50%, gate opens up. Hopefully... Okay. They can get out of the gate. Oh, and now we're having an issue where once the gate closes... Oh, no, they're still able to... I'm going to put a timer. I'm going to put a small little timer on that. We're going to do delay. It's just going to be this. We don't need a reset. 1 tick and 1 hour. So once that turns on, and then we need to connect the gate up to that instead of the... So once that turns on, this is going to be open for an hour, and then that will close. I could do, I guess... How long is a tick? Can I do like 0.5 hours? Okay. So assuming these are on for more than just flashing on. So half an hour. Then this will turn on, stay on for an hour, so this stays open and they can bring stuff over. What does the repopulator need after it's built? It needs... Good question. Doesn't tell me. I don't remember either. Berries and treated planks. Thank you, Runic. So we could do another... This is one control structure. Sorry. Also, Dabbler, I got interrupted. There is a gate now, so this opens and closes. It's a path you can open and close. You can do it manually, and it also has a automated function so that we can automate the opening and closing of it. Obviously, I don't know why I say things sometimes. Where is my resource counter? There we go. Because honestly, if I add... How many berries do I normally have? None? Where are my berries? Oh, they're in food. Yeah, so I'm normally at berries. At maximum of berries. I don't have any normal input. So yeah, I'll just... also do as long as berries are above 50%. Nope, that's below. As long as the berries are above 50%. If berries greater than 50%, that'll flip on. We will then make this... I will make this berries and treated planks. Greater than 50%. Berries, treated planks. I will make this gears and metal blocks, not treated planks. I will make this one gears and metal blocks along with berries and treated planks. And then our AND gate becomes gears, metal blocks, berries, and treated planks to activate our timer, which lets the beavers over here. And I switched this to be berries and treated planks because once this is actually built, we could delete these two, hook the timer up only to this AND gate, and then have it function. Because otherwise, they would only fill this up when gears and metal blocks were over 50% still, which we don't need them to do. I'm also going to make this 2 hours. Also, again, this is taking up 8 spaces here while controlling controlling this singular structure. So we will probably, people will probably figure out better ways to hide this stuff. And I mean, we could just dig it underneath here, I guess, and put it down there, but you can change the light color. There's this new customization option up here. And you can like change the light color. You can even have it not really light up at all. But if you find the light color annoying, you can change it. I kind of like the yellow lights personally. And you could even do it like to where it's showing the IO here. So we could have all of the resources be yellow. These ones be... Oh, and we could do hex codes. I don't know hex codes very well, so I'm not going to do that off the dome. We could make these ones blue. This one could be green. No. This one could be orange and then green. And we could do it that way. And so we could see that way whether things were on or off over here, and I think it's less jarring than the bright white light. And I don't know whether anyone would ever decide to do this, but you could essentially make lights. Oh my god, wait a second. Not that you need to. The lanterns work that way, but you could make customized lanterns essentially by using an ore, only having one input and hooking it up to the chronometer. Hold on. What was I thinking? Oh, I wanted to double check. Yeah, these... Oh, wait. These now have... Oh. You can customize the lights on lantern. What can... You... Oh, I didn't even know. When did... You can customize the lights on basically anything. Oh. Oh, that's cool. So if I wanted these to be kind of an icy blue, I could do that. I am so... What? How did we deserve this? This game was already one of, if not the best, like, survival colony sim. I mean, there's also RimWorld and Factorio, but this game was one of the best survival colony sims prior to Tuesday. And their mechanistry is just that what they're able to accomplish is just kind of insane. I've been ignoring chat. Let me see what I've missed. Gate can be linked to weather. We could link the gate to anything with this automation, so I could link it to this earlier if drought. So if you wanted to I mean, I don't have to worry about bad tides over here, but if I had a place where beavers could go into bad tide infected water, I could make an if bad tide, then don't go into the water. And I think gates are fairly cheap. They're metal and no, I'm looking at gears and saying metal. They're planks, gears, and scrap metal, so they're fairly cheap. You could get them pretty early on with not very much work. Dabbler says, I've been mostly spoiler free until now, so I'm kind of geeking out over the possibilities. Writing the script for the first for the 1.0 update video that I'm releasing next week, realized that just how many things that I now, because I've been playing the 1.0 experimental for a while, like I went back and I went, oh yeah, spiral staircases are new. They haven't been here the whole time. They're new. They're 1.0. And I was like, oh my God, they have so blown this one out of the park. And obviously automation is just such the icing on the cake. But you can just change the programming for it later to turn off the population resource consumption. Yes, for the I'm not sure I know what that was in response to. Relay seems to not need a connection to anything, so it could be off in a quarter. Yeah, the relays, timers, and memory all don't actually need to be connected to anything. I could put them all over here if the beavers could get to them. So if you want actual machinery like that, you can put it all off under somewhere, or that kind of thing. Obviously contamination depth sensors and stuff like that needs to be sort of out and about to work. Chronometer doesn't. Weather relay doesn't. Power meter does need to be connected up to the power network. Population counter and resource counter both need a path connection, and then science counter could also be hidden. So you can hide quite a bit of it, in all honesty. Sluices are already well automated. So sluices, actually, that is something to mention. Sluices are gone, kind of. They'll stay in the map if they are already in the map, but you can no longer build sluices. You can't even copy them. The automation... Well, it's been... Here, I can pull that out. They've been replaced with the valve, which is essentially a sluice. I don't know why I put it up here, but it's going up here. So the valve is essentially a sluice. It still takes water in one way and lets it out the other. Unlike the sluice, which the way I use sluices will probably find more useful than the sluice, it's limited by flow limit rather than height. So there's at least one thing in Tutopolis I can think of where I needed it to be limited by flow limit, and I had to kind of adjust it based off height. And it didn't work very well. But I could, with the valve, I can just connect it up to this depth sensor, and then it will turn on and off the flow limit. And it has reaction speed, which I did not actually notice before. But you can adjust the flow limit based off of that logic coming from the sensor. So, I mean, a sensor and a depth sensor and a contamination sensor together essentially, well, and a relay, would essentially do the exact same thing to a valve as a sluice currently does. So it requires more, you can put the sensor on top of the valve too. It requires more room and materials than the sluice did, I think. Yeah, that looks like about what the sluice cost before. So it requires more of that than the sluice did. So that is a downside to the valve. But you can hook that up to any logic. So if for some reason you wanted a valve that's only open when your population gets above 100, you could do that. There's a lot of things like that where I don't know exactly what you would want to use it for. You could connect it up to weather. If you want a valve that is only open during a bad tide or something like that, you can do that. And the weather, I think I shut it. The weather has activate early, so you can go even the little warning that it throws up saying drought in 3 days. We could have it activate when that goes off rather than just waiting for the drought itself. Speaking of droughts, I do want to do this. I want to automate my water stuff. Because I think, let's see, it should turn off during a drought unless water gets low. But also, do I want to turn it off if the water is too high? Like the stored water is too high. could. 'Cause then that would free up jobs. Longest time you can set on a timer is a good question. Where is... A lot. So it would be... Whoa. It appears to be 900 and... Nope. 9,999,999 hours. Or actually days would be... You could set it to almost 10 million days. Would be the longest time. Yes, you could also activate sluices based off of the upstream, or valves, I guess they're... Everyone's just going to call them sluice. You could activate the new sluice based off the upstream depth as well as the downstream depth. Which would mean that you actually don't need any sort of flood control structure like this. If you wanted to go that route. I don't. I like the dams. But these actually, as opposed to the sluice, I am almost sure that we will see someone who has no visible water. Because I think you could very easily, using logic, make a no visible water colony. Bad tide settings for the valve is what I need to figure out. Do you have like an example? So I have the valve right here. Are you talking about like turning on during a bad tide? Because you could set it so that you activate early. Let's just say 24 hours for the bad tide on here. And then connect up the valve there. And so off would be your... So then let's turn off activate early, since you said water filtration at the beginning of a tide. So this... Yeah. So the essentially the copying what is there. So if I just have it set to bad tide, and I'll change this even though I'm not actually... If I just have that set to bad tide, and then I can... I would do it up here, except for I built this out of logs. I built it out of levees, and I would have to replace the entire... Well, it's a... Let's do it. I'm going to solve your problem, or help you solve your problem. Please pick all these up. No, not that. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of the... Nope, let's copy this and put it over here on this, just because I like the visual. So, we want weather station bad tide just cut off immediately upon a bad tide hitting. That makes sense. Now, the one thing here with what I have set up, it is pressurized. I don't know how long that takes to clear. Can I think they can... I can shove a contamination sensor down here. And they can build it through the... Okay, that works. So I'm going to have this down here just because I don't know how long this takes to clear. I don't know if it's necessary. So I'm going to make this if contamination greater than 0%. And I'm going to make this if bad tide and then I think I just need an exclusive ore for this. Let me see. I'll put down a relay. I will make this red because I find that funny. I will make this red because I also find that funny. This one doesn't need a color. No, not an exclusive ore. I need a regular ore. So if it is a bad tide, or if the contamination is greater than 0%, then this will be on, which means that these will need to close. So I'll automate based off that. Off, my off setting is going to be when this is off. So there is no bad tide and there is no contamination. So that will be unlimited. On will be 0. And that should work. Because it'll flip on when either of these happens, which means that essentially as soon as the bad tide starts. And I guess I don't even need to use the if bad tide on this one because this is just going off contamination. I could do just based off contamination, but I like both. I like having both. Yeah, so if it's not a bad tide, it just is open. And if it is a bad tide or there's any contamination left over here, nothing's coming through. I have it full reaction speed. I don't know what that means, but it's synchronized with other ones. Loose control. So that should work just for... Oh my god, look at how low this has gotten. That should work just for your, like, what am I trying to say? That should work just for any sort of bad tide detection system. That would be it. So you don't have to worry about... I wish I could remember the words I'm trying to say. You wouldn't have to worry about any bad water getting through in this sort of setup. You would also need to essentially What I would do in this situation, this would be the type of thing where I think a knot would work. You could get a... Since you wouldn't have sluices down at the bottom like I have, these would be more... Not those. These would be more valves instead of sluices. I think the most logical thing to do here, just take another relay, make this not the other one, and then connect the bottom valves up to this relay. Because then anytime these ones aren't open... Oh, you're right. They don't need knots. So you could also just flip this. You could have the flow be on. Just flip this like that for the bottom ones. All depends on what you want to do. Again, knots are so weird to me. Not weird. But if you have this... Oh, my God. Can I click? If you have this much fine control that you can, like, do it for everything... and you have the and or Zor gates, you honestly don't need knots in most situations, but it helps. Helps with the way people think about things. Gora says, have you found any solution to prevent the valves create a wave pool when it flickers between on and off? No, but I have seen what you're talking about. And now I want to... where is the timer? I'm going to do this just to illustrate what you were saying, because I don't think everybody watching the stream necessarily knows. Oh, it happens upstream? I thought it happened downstream. It seems like it can happen both sides. Although that was... Let's just open this up. Yeah, it definitely happens upstream more. If I make this longer, does that do anything? Oh, yes, it does. Okay. Huh. What a weird... what a weird issue. Let me see if reaction speed does help with that. If I give it 30% reaction speed. It does. Okay. It's apparently the reaction speed that's causing that. Because this will bubble up anyway. It's pressurized in a silly way. So yeah, reaction speed does appear to diminish that. If I turn this off, Will that go away, or is that just my bad building? I think that's just my bad building. Happy Floodland! Yay! Looks like the valve is siphoning the water as if it was an empty block and then output the water per the flow request. Yeah, that's what I would assume. I would assume you are correct on that. That it's like creating a weird vacuum effect. Because the sluice isn't actually holding any water, but it's pushing water out. So yeah, it looks like the reaction speed does have something to do with it. Yeah, reaction speed makes the wave pool. If we drop it down, even 75 is reducing that quite a bit. And yeah, 50 is... 50, it's gone. I mean, you can still see it a little bit. It's kind of moving up and down this log here a little, but going to 50 will reduce it entirely. Well, let's do the wave pool. Okay, I'm gonna turn that off. Although I have now... Oh my god! Oh, because it's pressurized and now I don't have anything controlling it. Okay, there we go. Maybe? Is that gonna work? It's fixing itself. Probably. It's weird that that did not have any downs... Oh, well, but we have the flood control, don't we? Huh. Cool. I was going to say, it's weird that that didn't have any downstream consequences, but I forgot that I had planned for me flooding everything by accident. Okay. Hitting around 2 hours now, but I still wanted to do my automation for the water here. So I need something to control if it is a drought. Or actually not. I think this is where I want to use my temperate weather. I'm going to have that activate. I have it activate 3 days early. So I'm going to have that connected to a NOT gate. Or maybe a OR gate or XOR gate. I don't know. I want the opposite of that input is my point. Because I want these to turn off anytime that there is no drought. I want these to turn off if... Oh no, I want these to turn off if there is no drought, but also I want them on if these are, if there's not enough water. So how would I do that? So I need resource counter for water. If water falls below 30%, I want them all to turn on, even if it is the middle of a drought. So I need a XOR gate? What am I trying to... No, I think... Well, it's if not this, and this. Right. No. Wait. Hold on. I'm having so much trouble visualizing this. I want these on if it is not a drought. God dang. Okay. I want these on if water is below 30% always. Or if it's not a drought. An or an and based on if you want the emergency pumping or not. I wish I had a piece of paper. I don't know why I can't. I need a relay either way. So let's just think. If this is not on, and this is on, I want this on. So it's an or. If this is on and this is on, I still want this on. So it's an or. I don't know why that was so hard. Is there a decider beacon? What do you mean by decider beacon? Oh, okay. So you're talking about like a logic gate. Because the relay would be the logic gate. It is the not and or zor and pass through. I still don't know what pass through is for. Because it just gives the... I'm sure someone smarter than me knows what pass through is for. It just gives on if on. Water less than 30%. And there is one more thing I want to do for this before I connect these up. I also wanted to turn off if water is... I want the threshold that I had before. I don't need all this stuff up here. So the other thing I want, and I've done this in such a weird waste of space way. Pass-throughs for on-off switches to logic circuits. Well, why wouldn't you just be able to use the sensor? I don't know. I get... I'm sure someone knows. That's not me. That's smarter than me. I'm not saying it's useless. I'm just not smart enough to know. So this, if... This is still threat to if it's below. So I want this to be if above or equal to 99% again. Then I want this one. I guess really that should be... This should just be a memory. I don't know, I'm just putting these in such random spots. I don't know. This should be a memory soft reset the same way the one... resource count. One. if water greater than, I mean, really, it's equal to 100%. I think this counts inputs and outputs, which is why it is not hitting 100% at 100%. So this turns on if water falls too low, turns off if water gets high. This I've accidentally made a stream that is going to be me thinking too hard. This one is the emergency control. So that one, if these are on, if this is on, these should always be on. Unless the water is too high, but the water can't be too high if this is on. So I just need... I don't need the memory here, do I? Or I just have it be set here. But I don't want that set reset. I don't think. Hold on, let me see if that... Just don't go trying to implement a calculator in Timberborn today. I thought not about doing it today, but I thought about thinking, you know, just trying to see what I could do for a calculator. And I think you could. You have levers, you have inputs, or you have levers and indicators. So I think you could feasibly do some sort of calculator. And memory, which I think are the only three things you actually need for a calculator. I don't know how to make a calculator, though, in real life, so I don't know how to make a calculator in Timberborn. Okay, so that turned off, this flipped on. This is what I want. This is water control. So, this flips on. Essentially, this works the same way, where these turn on if the water gets too low. Or... No, yeah. These turn on if the water gets too low, or it is a drought. Not a drought. If it's temperate. But also will turn off if the water measurement is 100%. The water storage is 100%, I guess I should say. So then this, I automate to here and copy this everywhere. BS Drago says, greetings from Brazil. Hello! Brazil is gigantic. That's what I know about Brazil, that it is a giant country. I also love this game. What else did I miss here? Because I haven't been looking as I've been thinking too hard. And also I've realized I have implemented this poorly because it's now oscillating. Chris said, don't go trying to implement a calculator. Input output gates. That's all you need. Try not to think about low level hardware things. Yeah, I think I've said twice before now, but I have I have most of a computer science degree, but my younger brother is an electrical engineer. I'm sure if I showed him this, he could very quickly figure out how to get a calculator working in Timberborn. Which, oh, these guys have run out. Which I am not that smart. I couldn't even begin to figure out how that works. Ooh, look, our mine is off. So this might need another thought given to it. Because it's also... Oh, okay. I could do not this and that as an AND gate and then... Or is that how I want it? No, it's not how I want it to work. Because I want it to only flip this once these start actually falling. Or do I? Or do I just want to get rid of that altogether? I'll just get rid of that altogether. Really? It was a nice thought, but... I think it is unnecessary. And I'm sure there is a way to do that, but it's going to be too complicated for me to get into while I also have to talk. Okay, so is there any other thing that would be quick and easy to do? I don't see anything else that is quick and easy that I need to do. So, well, I don't need to do any of it, I guess. I think, since what am I at now? About 2.5, a little under 2.5 hours. I think that might be where I call it quits for tonight. Unless I can see anything right now while I look around, and I have just spotted what this looks like when all the lights are on, which is very fun. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything else that, because all this, I've got such a surplus. So I have an automated workshop based off of inventory, partially because, I mean, I could do pine resin, I guess, because that's the only one that really fluctuates. Everything else, I've got way more input than I have output. I've got some things that fluctuate based off of inventory. I've got the dirt excavator turning off based off of having a surplus inventory. These engines are controlled based off of, well, if there is a surplus inventory of logs, they wouldn't turn on if there were no logs. This machine over here, for the Earth Repopulator, it's entirely based off of whether or not we have enough of the, well, not enough. It's entirely based off of whether we have more than the 50% threshold of all of the things that build this at the same time. It's not based off of one or the other. They have to all be above 50%. And then this one, it's got a lower threshold for the water, where these will kick on if it is a drought and we are running out of water, but they will be off otherwise. I didn't. I could do pine resin, but let's see. I don't know, and I don't have good statistics installed. I could do a quick pine resin one, because that's actually the only thing that... So I will just do... what is... It's our wood workshop is going to be the only thing using pine resin, I believe. Yeah. So I'm just going to... I'm going to do it over here because I don't have very much room over there. I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do pine resin and pine resin. I always do that. I should put 1 down, do pine resin, copy it, and put it there. Pine resin is going to... First one is going to be 0. Once it's equal to 0, I want them to turn off. And then once it gets back up to greater than or equal to, let's say 75%, I want them to turn back on. So essentially, is once they hit the end of the pine resin, they will stop, and then once they have more pine resin, they will start. And then I want it to be based off of that one and then reset with that one. Sounds right. If pine resin 0%, which is just 0. And if pine resin greater than 75%, then pine resin control. So pine resin is greater than 75%. It kicks on until pine resin hits 0, and then it'll kick off. Then I will connect that up, and then I will press V to copy it to these 2. Then I assume it'll work, but I'm just going to quickly... Oh. Let's just make that below or equal to. So that kicks on, and then that kicks off. But this is the wrong way around. So that should... Yes. I do... I have caps for the number cruncher currently. And then I have the gate over here for that one. But I mean, I haven't really... Well, I guess again, the dirt excavator turns off if there's too much stored. Let's see, the wood workshops should be off currently. Well, I guess they technically should be on. And let's just make sure that once that is above there, that kicks on, and then that goes back off. Yes, okay, cool. So that should work. Less than or equal to 0. Really could just be equal to, but this greater than or equal to 75. 75 kicks it on, 0 kicks it off. And then that'll turn off all of the wood workshops for pine resin, which is the only thing that we really need to worry about, other than scrap, because this keeps turning off. But that's another thing. All right. That is going to be where I have to end it because now I actually am at 2.5 hours. So, to everyone who has been here, who has checked in, and who has watched, if you're still here, or if you're watching later, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be streaming again next Thursday when the game fully releases. I'm also going to have the first video for the multi-part series where I'm going to be covering all of the relays and other logic indicators and stuff. The first part of that's going to be going up that day, and then I think there's only going to be one more part, but there might be two depending on how long it ends up going. So that'll be bringing us back to 2 Topless with the Timberborn Beginner Survival Guide. So to everyone who has been here, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It's been fun. I need to stream more. I never do. But, yeah, that is going to be it from me. I think in the description should be a link to my Discord if you want to join that. I post there before I go live and try to give adequate warning when I'm planning on a stream. So if you want to go and join that. We also talk about Timberborn. You know, it's a Discord. So, yeah. Thank you so much for watching. And have a great night, everyone. I really appreciate everyone coming. Bye.